Coming up in today's episode, Cloudflare wants to make all of the web into Markdown, Chrome is bringing MCP to the web, and we have another survey to talk about. It is a jam-packed episode, so let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Front End Fire podcast, the weekly podcast that helps you stay up to date on the latest and the greatest in the front end world. I'm your host today, Paige Niedringhaus, and I am joined by my co-hosts TJ Van Tol.
Hey everybody.
And Jack Harrington.
Hey everybody.
We have some fun stuff to talk about today. We've got more survey results. We have a bunch of new stuff about AI and how the web is continuing to focus on all things AI. So let's get into the news.
Let's do it.
All right. So I started off by saying that we have some more survey results. So it was really fun talking about that last episode for State of JavaScript. So let's talk about what's coming up now in the State of React.
Yeah, this is the State of React survey, so it's another survey week on the show. But again, we like talking about these surveys, not just because it's fun, but it is kind of fun to talk about. But also these surveys give you a good hint of where the ecosystem is, what people are using, what people like using, what they don't like using, and those sorts of things as well. So we like bringing it up for that reason. And so this week it's the React survey, and React being still the biggest front-end framework in use today. It's worth focusing on. Obviously not as many people fill out this survey as the full front-end one, but I still think it's kind of interesting to go through and talk about. So just off the top, the two biggest jumps in this that stood out to me throughout the entire thing were two big jumps in awareness and two frameworks that we talk about a lot on this show. The first one is TanStack Start. So Jack's favorite option has jumped up to 15% of people have now used TanStack Start, up from 3% from a year ago. So that's a pretty sizable jump. And
it's not even released.
It's not even out. And
really?
It has a 93% satisfaction rate as well. So that's quite good also. So TanStack is doing quite well. And then the other big jumper, and this one is no surprise either, ShadCN is still continuing to climb in the UI world. Usage of ShadCN is up to 56%, which is up from 20% 2 years ago. So it is climbing pretty quickly. Awareness of ShadCN is up to 89%. So almost everybody has heard about it at this point. And 90% of people are satisfied with ShadCN as well, which is a good number because as we've talked about on the show before, as usage goes up, keeping that satisfaction number high as well is very difficult. That's like Veet territory to be well used and popular as well.
That's crazy how high that is.
So those are the two that stood out to me in a positive way. On the negative side, and this is a framework we talked about last week on the JS survey, is Next.js. So Next.js is still highly used. So 80% of React people are using or have used Next.js before. So usage of Next is still doing fine. But satisfaction with Next is down on this survey as well. Down to 61% of people that have used Next are satisfied with it. And it was also the single most commented on library in the entire survey by a solid margin. And I read through the comments and they were not very positive. I can tell you overall, lots of people complaining about all sorts of things. It kind of difficulty of upgrading, over complexity, issues with TurboPack, issues with the founder of Vercel, and kind of everything in between. So those were to me just at a glance, just high level on the entire survey, just breaking it down. Those were the three biggest, I guess, movers in positive and negative directions.
Even though Next.js may not have the most positive sentiment around it, it is still, like you said, probably one of the biggest and the most chosen frameworks right now for web developers to build an application with.
By far.
The old saying used to be you're never going to get fired for choosing IBM. Now, for web developers, you're probably not going to get fired for choosing to build something in Next.js. It is just a solid, all around a good choice at this point.
That's actually, I did. Oh, sorry. I did read in a Medium article, like a guy was like fired after a couple weeks. It was, I don't know if it was real or not or whatever, but he was talking about how he went into a job and they wanted him, or he looked at their SPA architecture and decided that they needed to do SSR and blah, 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 blah. And so he spent a bunch of time moving them over to Next.js. It deployed, it cratered because, they didn't get the SSR kind of stuff set up properly and whatever, and performance issues. And then, he got fired because they were like, you looked at this and said, without really fully understanding what we were doing, do the SSR thing. So, you got to watch out, right? You got to use the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, Next is still king because when you look at the other frameworks that are similar on the board, their usage is all still quite a bit lower. So Remix is on here, but it's still used by a small fraction of people. React Router has a good amount of usage, but that's a little broader in terms of its scope than what Next.js does.
Stuff, really.
Yeah. So Next is still king at what it does, even if people kind of have mixed opinions of the framework itself. From there, kind of just going category by category, for state management, Zustand is the tool that grew the most. 50% of people have now used Zustand. And 94% of those people are satisfied.
Zustand. Yeah.
Zustand.
Yeah.
So I was shocked that half of people have now used it. Maybe I shouldn't be shocked. Maybe Zustand is, I should have been behind it more all the time, but I was impressed by that number.
It's kind of one of those things where it's so small that it's like, oh, well, I need a little global state. Cool. I'll just bring it in and use it for one thing, I don't know, dark mode, light mode, or, my current user ID or whatever, some sort of small thing that you need in a bunch of places. And you just don't want to spend the time like wiring up context or whatever.
I was just going to say, like, context won't fit the bill for some reason, or you just don't want to deal with it.
That's the funny thing with agents nowadays. Like, is it harder to say, like, type in the words like use Zustand versus use context? I don't know, but we don't really do any of this stuff anymore. So it's like, the agents are good with either, really. But I kind of use it a lot.
It's just one more dependency to manage, which always makes me, halt or think about it a little bit. It's like, do I want to bring in another package if I could do this maybe with a few extra lines of code with the already existing framework or meta framework? But that's cool. If people like it, great. Have at it.
Props to them. Enjoy, guys. Knock yourselves out.
Again, I'm trying to pick out one or so things out of each category. In the CSS world, Tailwind is still doing quite well. It is now used by 78% of React developers, which is up from 73% last year. So Tailwind is still continuing to go up. For data loading, TanStack Query is king. Its usage grew up to 68%, and 97% of people are satisfied with TanStack Query. That is Vite territory. That's, I think, the only thing that gets up that high. So everybody who uses TanStack Query for the most part uses it.
It's great. It's so great. It works so well.
In the build tools world, Vite is still king. It's been used by 92% of React developers, which is up from 88% last year. I'm not sure who those 8% still left are, but Vite is taken over. I guess they're just next-only people. In the hosting world, Vercel is still the most popular React hosting platform. 62% of people have used it. And then a couple last things from the end. We talked last week about learning methods and in an AI world. And I thought it was interesting that AI tools jumped from 42% of people using AI tools as a learning method up to 54%. So a lot more people using AI. And then we have some data to go behind it. And then the last, and again, the most important part of this is that Front End Fire is the 5th most popular podcast according to React developers. And honestly, we're only a few votes behind being second place. It's kind
What?
of, if you look at the votes, it's kind of syntax and then a bunch, everybody else after a little bit of a dip. Yeah. And we're right in there. So thanks everybody that voted for us. See, this is what we get when we get our checkbox in the survey. We do quite well. So
yeah, exactly.
So that was cool to see.
For an empire.
Jack was the third most popular video creator and the seventh most popular person. I don't know. It's kind of weird that you just vote on people, but Jack, you were the seventh most popular person according to React developers. So
well done.
Well done.
Well, thanks. I couldn't get there in high school, but I can get there in my late 50s.
Yeah. And so that was were my takeaways looking through it. I don't know if you two had anything else that you wanted to add. I kind of just tried to pick out some things here and there because, again, we could spend the show talking about this, but we do have the link to the full survey results in the show notes if you want to check it out.
I was just happy to see how far TanStack has reached and really just excited about that, to be honest. Like it's just, it's like the year of TanStack pretty much at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, most of the survey, the reason I just picked out things here or there is the React world at this point is kind of stable. If you look, there's a lot of just straight lines throughout this survey. Yeah. I mean, turns out the same number of people are really just using React. Most of the same people are using Tailwind as before. Most of the same people are using Next as before. So usually when I look at this, I try to pick out the things that are different, and that's kind of what I tried to highlight because React is a pretty stable ecosystem at this point. But hopefully TanStack Start can shake things up a little bit. That'd be good to see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another good year for TanStack. But yeah, it was very fun to read through this. Like TJ said, the results aren't as varied as kind of like the state of JavaScript survey, just because React is it's a narrower part of the ecosystem. And there are already some really big players in it. But it is very fun to see what's kind of continuing to be popular as well as what's coming up. And, maybe we'll have some dethroning next year. You never know.
We'll try.
All right. Well, that was a good way to start off the episode. Jack, what do you have to share with us for news this week?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Google and Microsoft are deciding that they want to go up with their own version of MCP, but now as part of your web app. So if you've got like a spa and you've got some functionality in there, like let's say that usual flight reservation system, right?
Everybody's favorite example.
Everybody's favorite thing. You can go and register tools with the DOM or a Web3C API and say, okay, I've got my search flights thing or whatever, and then an in-browser AI assistant can then see that you have these tools on this page and invoke those, as opposed to doing the kind of like messing around trying to get the form, trying to ideate about what the form's doing and all that kind of thing and driving it manually. So you can either give it a tool or you can use a straight form. And then the form angle is you just put a couple of additional elements on the form. It's unclear whether so Chrome allows for this as a flag. It's unclear whether the Gemini in Chrome, like the user-facing Gemini, which would be just the assistant bar at this point, knows anything about this. So it's possible those two teams at Google don't talk to each other yet or whatever, but they will, I'm sure. In the meantime, you can use MCP-B, which is a Chrome extension, and then it polyfills in this API. And then your page can then do that, and you could use you could use a straight Claude desktop or whatever, and then it would integrate into that MCP in the browser, and then you'd use it that way. So you can try it out today, and it'll only get better as you start to see I'm guessing IE, because Microsoft is going to go and integrate this so their assistant can use it and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, I think it's kind of cool, to be honest. The ability for a spa dev to basically go and say, hey, listen, stop dinking around trying to mess with my forms and stuff, and just call me. Just like if you want to add a reservation, just call me. Or if you want to know like what the movie times are, just call me and I'll tell you in data, and then you can tell me what seats you want and yada yada yada. We get you hooked up with movie tickets or whatever.
Does the MCP though? We'll keep using the flight example because I think that's
sure.
That's everybody's favorite one. So are you registering tools, and are the tools helping the agent use the UI, or is it kind of subverting the UI? So what would your tool actually do? Would it tell it like this is the input for the return date and this is the input for the airport? Or I'm kind of unclear on what you're actually providing.
This is like you give it a function. You give it like a search flights function, and you say, well, that one way is to do that. Like, let's just go with the JavaScript angle. You would give it a search flights function, and then you'd call this navigator.modelcontext.register tool, and then you give it that tool. And then when an AI assistant would hit the page, it would go, oh, okay, what tools are available, if any? It would find like search flights. And then instead of like trying to use your form, it would call that search flights, which would in turn kind of be like, I guess, a backdoor into your Zustand store or whatever, to then, actually make those calls. And do, your back end fetches and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. It's probably like if you have already like a clean separation on your page between the MVC layer. Oh my God, that's so old school. Where your model layer is talking to, your back end to go insert flights. Then this is just another C. It's just another controller, just like the UI, but it's just another way of like getting a request from, the browser, like user click or this MCP thing to go and ask for those flights. And, it's going to be, more accurate.
Interesting.
Yeah. Technical things aside, I can say as someone who's tried most of these, if not all of these AI browsers and tried browser control, quote unquote, browser control in most of them, it's still quite bad. Just all of them are quite bad.
I like the clarity of the assessment. It's just bad.
Yeah. It still doesn't work.
And so this is going to help with that, right? This is going to, if your button doesn't have the magic text that it needs, that the AI is going to look for like go to the next, table or set of the table, the next page of the table. This is going to help you do that much more reliably.
I'm still not convinced that teaching agents to run our browsers is the ultimate best model, but
no.
We'll see. At the very least, this is something else to try. So in a way, we're acknowledging what's currently happening is not working. And will this be the answer? I don't know. We'll see. Do you think people should, if you, let's say you run a flight search website and you're listening to this podcast, is this something you should care about? Maybe just like play with the beta and try it out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you can, I think it's like a fun weekend project to just, tell your agent like, hey, let's set up MCPB on my, as an extension, and then add some, a couple of tools to my page, and then just hit up Claude Desktop and be like, hey, Claude, here's a new MCP server for you, go find me some flights and see if it works.
I mean, it's like a new API. You just see if that's available on the window object, and if it is, why not? I guess it doesn't hurt anything.
Exactly. What the heck, right? I was actually thinking about adding it to tanstack.com/builder. And so you could go on the AI and be like, okay, I need a new database, an app that has a database and an auth system and blah, 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 blah. And it would just like check all the boxes and get all it all done for you.
Yeah. Why not?
We don't have to pay for the AI. That's the cool thing. Like your in-browser assistant would do that. And however that's paid for, is how that would work.
I mean, it's Google and Microsoft. They don't care.
Well, currently, right. But like if you, imagine like down the line, they actually want to start charging for like a better agent or whatever, they can do that.
Right. Well, then we go to, who was it? Was it Opera? that was trying to charge for their AI, or no, it was Neon, wasn't it? Somebody was trying to charge like $20 a month for their browser, their AI browser. Yeah. I don't remember which one it was now.
$20 a month, man. That thing's got to work.
Yeah, that's a really hard sell.
A lot of them have tied, the most common model for these is that some amount of AI usage is free and then you pay to go beyond that. Like Perplexity had that with Perplexity Pro. I think OpenAI's browser, man, I've forgotten, so many of these have fallen off the map, but OpenAI's I think was the same way. You got so much usage of their heavier models, and then beyond that you had to be part of their paid tiers to keep going. So, or some of them tied it, Gemini's model in Chrome was that the browser use part, you had to be some sort of premium Gemini member. So free people could ask basic questions, but if you wanted the browser, Gemini to actually control the browser, you had to be part of some level of paid tier.
Yeah. Economics are so weird, right? I was out shopping last night to go get like baby spinach, and I can't remember what the other ingredient was, but something, for dinner, basically. The missing ingredients we didn't have. I think the total charge is like $6 or something like that. And then on my way back to the car, I was thinking like, okay, so I've been working with like the Claude Agent SDK recently and looking at the actual like numbers, because at my job, we want to figure out like the best combination of how to do this most cost effectively. And so every one of these Claude SDK things was like $2 each. And I was running this like, in batch jobs, just boom, 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 smoking these things out. Yeah. It's like, I must have spent like $200 in the space of, I don't know, a couple hours. And it's like, that's just weird, man. Like, and then the baby spinach costs like $6, like costs $6. Like, how does that work? I don't know. Just weird. Yeah.
It really is. And it's so strange to me because I'll run like the cost at the end of a Claude Code session, or when I'm done working on a feature or something, just to get an idea of how much money I've spent. And it's so weird that I'm being paid for a job and then my employer is paying even more for me to use these tools. But then I think about all the stuff that I don't see the bills for. It's like my seat in Jira and my seat in Confluence and my Microsoft Office account for email and everything. So it's like there's a bunch of hidden costs, but when we can actually see the other costs that we're incurring in order to do jobs or to help our company grow or whatever, make money, yeah, it is weird to see that. But also then you think about, okay, it costs the company $200 a month for a Claude Code subscription or a GitHub Copilot seat or whatever for each developer. But the cost of bringing on another developer to do some of that work and having to pay them a salary and having to pay them for equipment and healthcare and training, et cetera, it's a drop in the bucket by comparison. Yeah. So it's it is a really weird thing though to think about. Like, you just spent $200 in 2 hours, but also you got a bunch of stuff done at the same time, maybe.
If you look at how much your company spends on something like Salesforce, you will no longer feel guilty about how much you spend on Claude. You'll look at it as like, wow, this is a great investment.
Right.
Yeah, that's why they have like the largest tower in San Francisco.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, enterprise costs are just ridiculous, and I think we would all be shocked if we actually were part of the finance department and saw what businesses are spending for stuff.
Although I have to say, probably my favorite side project I've seen somebody push out, and I'll make sure this gets in our show notes, is somebody tied into their Claude. They tied their Claude into a receipt printer, like a receipt printer you get at a store. So every time Claude ended a session, it would print out a receipt on their desk with just like an old school receipt printer. I just thought, how cool is that? That's just a lot of fun.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
I'll get that in the show notes if people want to check that out.
That probably doesn't.
Like the Doom on a paper printer. That was hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Oh, all right. So my news for this week is also AI related, but this is another one from Cloudflare. Cloudflare is now trying to bring Markdown to AI agents no matter what your website does now, which is a pretty cool idea, because that's kind of been the thing that we've learned over the past couple of years, is that AI agents and people, I would say a lot of developers really benefit from just Markdown instead of HTML and having to parse through images and tabs and whatever else we have on the screen typically on a web page. They just want straight Markdown, headers, paragraphs, bullet points, the basics. And so a lot of sites, and I've worked on sites too, where we have then tried to kind of add in a step that will make your HTML site also have a Markdown version for agents to be able to quickly reference, parse through, learn what they need to learn. But it's complex, it's clunky, it adds a lot of computing time many times. It's not intuitive for how a lot of sites were built, because they were built pre-AI agents and the thinking around them just wasn't there. So it's not been great. So what Cloudflare is doing, or is proposing now, is that they are going to support real-time content conversion using what they call content negotiation headers. So an AI agent like your Claude Code or your Codex or Gemini or whatever goes to your site and they say, I want to understand what these docs are about because I want to use Tailwind or I want to use TanStack Start or whatever. And they will send along a header with the request that just is accept : text/markdown.
Yeah.
And
great.
if your
sense.
site's being served by Cloudflare will automatically try and real-time convert your site from an HTML into Markdown so that agent can read it and quickly gain whatever knowledge they need and go about its day. And
okay, that's freaking cool.
yes.
That's so cool.
It very much is.
Yeah.
And it's, so I think you can opt into this right now if you're using Cloudflare. And yeah, Claude Code and Open Code apparently are already sending these headers when they're making web requests with their web tools. So it's kind of already being utilized and sort of I wouldn't say a standard, but it's already in use, which is great. And yeah, it's a very cool idea, and just another reason that people are going to want to switch to Cloudflare if they're not already hosting their sites there, because not having to worry about that build step or do it yourself sounds great.
Yeah, well, this one hits home for Paige and me, because we spent some time trying to make this happen, because at Blues, there's a big documentation site, and documentation sites are perfect for this sort of thing. You want to get rid of all the cruft around it. And it sounds like that would be an easy problem to just create a separate endpoint where you're just serving Markdown. But the thing is, in websites, there's just a lot going on. It turns out everything is hard, and having a service like this would have been so nice because it's just external. We just worry about serving up our documentation and then just let the host take care of the mess of just going through the HTML, markdownifying it, and serving it off to the AI agents. Because essentially, you're just making life for the agent simpler, or for the LLM simpler, because that's what they're doing already. They're scraping the web, and then they're having to figure out what's the important part of this. And if you can make their lives easier, it's just going to mean people get faster results when they're looking up your stuff, or get better results because they don't have to sift through all the Tailwind CSS classes that 78% of us are using or whatever. It just goes straight to the content. Yeah.
And you're saving a bunch of tokens. Like Cloudflare ran this against some of their own web pages, and they saw something like a 80-30, I think it was a massive reduction in actual token usage. I can't remember exactly what it was because I don't have the article in front of me, but it was significant. And, when you're trying to manage context windows for agents and save money, like Jack was just talking about, or just make it easier to get the important things, that's huge. So good on Cloudflare for recognizing this pain point and also trying to do something about it that they just offer to anybody who's using them for hosting. It's a great idea.
I'm not surprised at all, because the frame around so many of these applications, like basically the nav, on the side and whatever and all that, those take up a massive amount of tags, like a crazy amount of tags. I remember like at Nike, we had a top bar and also a sidebar, and it was CSS visible based on your responsive stuff, and so it was basically everything was duplicated first, and it was like 3 layers of nesting before you got to the A links, and it was crazy. I mean, it was like 1,500 tags was like the base hello world page, because that was the frame, and you'd have these pages where it was like the actual content of the page paled in size to the nav. And so you're asking these agents to like just claw through that nav every single time and be like, nope, don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. It's crazy. I mean, I guess you could probably, like, if you did the right thing and it's in a nav tag, maybe you could just ignore it, but like, dang. Yeah.
Well,
I just hope,
and everybody likes to think that like the naive view is like, oh, well, just get rid of all that cruft, right? Why are you shipping so much? But the reality is that's just how modern software ecosystems on the web work. It's just cruft accumulates over time. No matter what you want to do, that stuff is going to build up. I mean, you can try to fight the good fight. I encourage everybody to try to keep their stuff simple, but the reality is that your stuff is just going to get more cruft accumulating over time. That's just how large projects with large teams end up happening, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not just that, but your SEO guy is going to be like, no, you're not getting rid of the nav. You are not getting rid of hard links on the nav, dude.
That's
nope.
right.
So it's basically a no-go zone.
Well, and then your marketing team is going to say, all of those 8 trackers are 100% necessary.
Yes,
those need to
exactly.
Those need to stay in there.
We don't know where they go, but we need them.
8. Nike had like 25. Yeah. Because every single product manager would come on board and be like, I need, this tracker. And you're like, oh, God. They never said
and these ancient features that have all this markup, those are still needed. You can't get rid of those because some C-suite person is insistent that sticks around. So this is why...
C-suite person who golfs with the guy that made that thing, and it's like, that's a long-term contract with that guy. I don't care whether you use it or not, but I'm paying that guy.
I do wonder it'd be really fascinating to know their algorithm behind this. If I were to try this, I'd I guess it'd be easy to test, right? Presumably you enable this and you send it with the appropriate headers to enable this, and you just kind of see what comes back from it, because it's also, you're shifting the work onto Cloudflare, but they still have to have quite an interesting algorithm, because it's not a simple process to take a complete dump of raw HTML and turn it into cleaned up Markdown. So I imagine that's quite an interesting problem for them to have to solve. But I'd rather them solve it with a team that's specialized in it than having each individual person having to solve it individually.
Yeah, it was a nightmare when we were trying to do it for our web application. It was because it wasn't just straight documentation. There were different options that you could choose, and then you'd get different docs based on those options. And, it was it was really difficult. And I think in the end, we did end up going, exactly. That kind of thing. Yeah, I do think that in the end, we ended up going with a third-party application or library or something to do that conversion for us, because it was just nearly impossible to do it ourselves.
Yeah, and then to maintain, because if you create a separate rendering pipeline, that's a rendering pipeline that you're maintaining forever and that you're not necessarily testing, because humans don't view Markdown, they view rendered web pages. I don't know. It's a mess. I think this has some serious potential. I think this is a really good idea by Cloudflare.
Yeah, and I just like the idea that they're also normalizing, like, using the accepts stuff in the header. Yeah. Because then, even if you don't have it on, even if you're not using Cloudflare, I know that TanStack, we make all our docs with Markdown, and then we convert them, on the fly. We render them into HTML, right? So if we see in the header accepts MD, we could just return to you the raw Markdown the way that, from us, right? And so there's no conversion. It's just whatever, and it would be perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. I think that is our main news topics for this week, but I know that we have some lightning news, so let's try that. All right. Who wants to kick us off?
I have TypeScript 6 has a beta out, and I just I thought it was worth bringing this back up just to check back in on the TypeScript project because it is basically the default de facto tool that we use
Number
to
one
write our
language
code
now.
in nowadays. Yeah. So as a reminder, TypeScript 7, which we've talked about on this show before, is the TypeScript team their big rewrite into Go for speed and performance. And we've talked about that a little bit before on previous episodes of the show. And TypeScript 6, because of that, is basically a preparation step to get ready for TypeScript 7.0. So just to quote from their blog post, this new code base will be the foundation of TypeScript 7 and beyond. TypeScript 6 will be the immediate precursor to that release, and in many ways will act as the bridge between TypeScript 5.9 and 7.0. As such, most of the changes in 6.0 are meant to help align and prepare for adopting TypeScript 7.0. So most of the changes looking through this, there's two big themes. The first is they've changed some of the defaults. So strict mode is now the default in TypeScript. The module is now defaulting to ES Next. They say acknowledging that ESM is now the dominant module format. And Target is now going to default to the current year ES versions. They say this reflects the reality that most developers are shipping to evergreen runtimes and don't need to transpile down to older ECMAScript versions. So they changed some of the defaults, and then they've also deprecated some of the old stuff. I take this as they probably don't want to support this with Go at all. So they've deprecated a target of ES5, and they've deprecated some of the old module formats like AMD, UMD, and System.js, and some other ones. You can read through the full blog post if you're curious. A lot of the deprecated stuff, though, is stuff you're probably not using. It's a lot of legacy stuff, and I think they're just trying to clean that up before they flip the switch and switch over to Go.
Nice.
It's amazing how much it's probably more just like a stripping function nowadays. Like TypeScript is basically just like, with those settings, it's basically just, in most cases, just literally stripping the types off. That's it.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, if you're working on a project that is that old that it's using these types of files or something, and you've also put TypeScript into it, I am impressed because I don't think I've ever worked on a project like a jQuery MVC or something like that, where somebody was like, let's add TypeScript to this now. Let's modernize this thing that's been running for 20 years in only JavaScript. But power to you if that's the case. Yeah, and then also please make the case for upgrading just to a new framework.
Yeah.
Get off that stuff if you can.
Well, TypeScript 6, it's a beta release, so I don't think I'd switch to it right now. But when it does come out, we'll let you know on this show. And it's probably worth switching to just to make sure you're ready for TypeScript 7. It sounds like it's probably going to be a pretty seamless change. They're not changing a whole lot here, just, again, some defaults and removing some older stuff. But when they push out 6.0 final, we'll let you know. And then the other small thing I had is Chrome is getting a split view, or at least I have it live, so I think everybody might have it now. Have either of you tried these like split tab views at all in Chrome?
Not in Chrome, but I've been using like side-by-side stuff in like Dia and Arc for a long time, and it's very handy.
Yeah, I don't think I have knowingly anyway.
So in Chrome, I just tested this out. So when I right-click on a tab, I can add tab to new split view, which does like the whole side-by-side thing. And then the other thing is if you drag a tab to the leftmost edge or the rightmost edge of a Chrome window, it'll auto-create a little split view for you. And that is just live. I didn't have to turn on any settings or anything. So I just upgraded my Chrome right before this show. I'm now on Chrome 145, and it's live for me. And then the other thing I tested is you can open DevTools on both of your split views as well, because of course I wanted to test that out. Because sometimes the other cool thing about split views is you get the little divider in the middle with a slider, so you can kind of control how much width you have for both. And I do side-by-side windows a lot for like my production environment and my local environment, because sometimes I want to see, oh, this looks a little bit different. Let me see them side by side. Did I whatever? And I could totally see myself using this just to have them up quite literally side by side at one time. So if you use workflows like that, you might want to try it out because apparently it should be live for everybody.
Now I'm going to just try and do this while we're doing the podcast recording at the same time. That is very cool, though.
And that was the news I had.
Nice. Thanks, TJ. That's actually very handy. I'm going to try that out for sure because there are so many times, and I just use my screen snapping software to just put views side by side all the time. So being able to do that in the browser, sweet.
I always find those are like they somehow like lose magnetism or something between the windows, and it doesn't work all the time. But it's good if you want to do like a half and half with like an editor and then the page, which is really good. If you can do that from a teaching perspective, that's the best way to go. Like as opposed to like flipping back and forth between the browser and the editor, because you lose a lot of context as you're doing that switch.
Yeah. Or if like when you're doing something like this, if you have show notes or something that you want to be able to see while you're also talking and doing your recording, super helpful. Instead of like dragging windows around and then minimizing and trying to get back to the right one so you can see yourself again. It's very difficult. All right. So I think that's going to wrap up our news for this week. So let's talk about what's making us happy.
Let's do it.
All right. Jack, what's making you happy this week?
Gridfinity is making me happy this week. So Gridfinity is this 3D printing standard for organization systems. So I'm kind of an organization freak. At times I kind of get into it. And my wife was out of town. She went to Florida for a week. And I was like, okay, now's the time. I'm going to organize the junk drawer. Yes. And yeah, so I printed out these sheets of basically grids. And they go on the bottom of the drawer, and then you can go and print, basically perfectly sized boxes that fit into the grid shapes. And you get to control every aspect of these things, the height, like you can add tabs and stuff if you want to label it, all that kind of thing. And yeah, it's really great. Like, everything is actually organized. Like when you can pull the drawer out, everything's not sloshing around and stuff. And then, so I did it with my silverware drawer, did it with my junk drawer, did it with like a drawer that we use for have peelers and that kind of stuff in or graters. And it just like, you open it up, you're like, organization. It's so nice, And so, yeah, my 3D printers were working overtime, like printing out all this stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of filament, but it's cool in the end.
Did you use your new laser 3D printer for this one?
Oh,
Did you get it, put it to use, or?
I have. It's a multifunction printer. I haven't used the laser part of it yet. Okay. But I did put it on casters. So, because in order to use the laser part, you actually have to vent it. But with filament, you don't have to vent. So, when I'm printing filament, I want it in one side of my workshop, and then when I do laser, I want it on another, and so I had to make it move. So that was a whole other project of actually building out a full casterized table. It was there's a lot of stuff going on.
Do you 3D print the casters?
No. I Temu the casters, man.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Temu for the win. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because I think they were $13 from Temu, and they're $80 for a set from Woodcrafters or whatever. It's the same thing.
Yeah. It's amazing how much we mark stuff up in the US.
Oh my God.
Well, and for something like that, cheap ones I feel would be totally fine. You don't need anything super fancy.
No. I mean, they're supposedly rated up to 600 pounds, but the printer itself, I think, is maybe 60. So yeah, no, not a problem. Yeah, I think it's okay. Yeah.
Nice. TJ, what's making you happy this week?
Well, I'm going to repick one that a show that Jack picked many, many months, might even be years ago, but The Residents on Netflix.
Oh, yeah. That was so good.
Yeah, so Jack picked this, like I said, a while ago, and I had meant to watch it, and apparently this week was the week. I don't know Netflix's algorithm throw it in front of me, and I thought, why not? And it's a detective show that takes place at the White House. That's kind of the fun part of it. And it's just a fun little show. I've really enjoyed watching it. We're almost done. We're like, I think 6 episodes through the 8 episodes series. Each episode's 50 minutes or whatever the case may be. I think the most interesting part of the show to me is just the production value. And
oh my God,
I looked into this afterwards that they built like almost a full replica of the White House down to like. There's crazy details. I thought they might have even. It's so well done that you thought maybe they actually had some access to the White House for filming, and they didn't. They filmed basically everything in a studio in California, but it's really well put together and produced, and it's just a fun time. I did look afterwards. They were not renewed for a second season, and I think the cost of producing the show went into it just because.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It was very expensive to make. And also the sets they did are not necessarily reusable unless they're going to set it at the White House again, and which, maybe, I don't know. But I still, it was a fun show. It's 8 episodes. It's on Netflix. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Some of the crane pulls that they did between like the basement and all the way up to the top of the White House was like, oh my God. That was either a lot of CG or that was amazing. Like they've got an amazing set that they can use. It was crazy.
Yeah, nice. I was watching it with my kids, and that was the biggest question was like, how did they do this? Are they actually at the White House? And like, I actually don't have the answers for you on this. It's well done enough that I can't actually tell.
Impressive. All right, so my pick this week is going to be the TV show New Girl, which is not new. It is quite old. I think. Old. Yeah, I think it came out in 2011, maybe.
Ancient history.
Yeah, extremely old in this day and age. But one of our friends actually recommended it to us when they found out that we hadn't watched it, and it's been actually really fun to watch. Zooey Deschanel is the main character, and I don't know what she's been in before or since that. Seems like she just kind of did that and then didn't really do anything else. But despite that, it's a fun 25-minute comedy show, sitcom, and it's really got a lot more. I've gotten a lot more laughs and kind of enjoyment out of it than I thought I would. It's got a lot more heart to it, and it's also great to kind of just throw on in the background while you're working on your computer or you're doing something else at the same time. You don't have to pay too much attention to it, and it's been really fun. And it's still in that time frame where there is 15 to 20 episodes per season, and there's 7 seasons of this thing. So there is plenty of content to just kind of keep rolling with and let the autoplay go.
I've never seen New Girl. I've seen clips here or there, but I've never actually watched the show.
I hadn't
my
either.
kids into it. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, it took a few episodes to get into it, and I think it definitely got better over time. But there are so many cameos in it of famous people now. Like her mom in the show is Jamie Lee Curtis, so she does multiple little appearances as a guest star. Damian Wayans Jr. is on it, off it a few times. Megan Fox, I think, is just about to be on it in the season that we're in, season 5, and you'll be watching, and then suddenly Henry Winkler will show up, and so it's like every single episode there's some new guest star that you've seen in other stuff who just happens to be on there for 1 or 2 episodes. So it's really kind of fun in that regard to see all these people. Jessica Biel was on it for an episode, and they just show up randomly. They're a character, and then they're done after that one episode. So I don't know if it was they're all just friends with her in real life and she's come on the show for an episode and be a random character or what. But it is kind of fun to see all these people and be like, oh, it's that guy again. What else was he in?
Nice.
So yeah, it's been fun to have on in the background while I'm just sitting on the couch doing other stuff. And it's good for a laugh. It's lighthearted. It's nice to have something, uplifting, I guess, right now. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Front End Fire. So thanks, as always, to our sponsor, the Blue Collar Coder channel on YouTube. And if you want to hang out with us, talk to us, we have our own Discord channel in the Blue Collar Coder Discord, and you can find us on Facebook, or not Facebook, on X, on Blue Sky, on LinkedIn, all the other good social channels. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.
See you, everybody.